see that there are multiple slides, and what I did was I provided a series of slides for that go beyond all the content that I will be able to cover during the 50 minutes, and that was because I wanted to have you all have just a whole series of slides. And so Marianne's going to be flipping through, and you're going to see some that we passed, but you'll have access to the slides, and you'll get the whole set. The other thing is that I'm certainly willing to take questions during the presentation. There are going to be times when I'm going to stop and say, does anybody have any questions? But if you type into your chat or go to raise your hand, I will be happy to stop when it's appropriate and take questions as we go. So with that, Marianne, if we could go to the first slide on page 2 about what we're going to cover. So when Marianne asked me to do this, she wanted to talk about partnerships in general, and then specifically about how adult basic educators may be needing to partner with workforce systems. So we're going to start with the general part of this. In this session, you're going to learn about strategic partnership building, strategies for developing and maintaining effective partnerships, and the benefits and risks associated with partnerships. Can we move to the next one? Partnership development, it's always interesting to me. I've been around for 30-some-odd years. I facilitate lots of people in partnership development, and I often get leaders who want to know why it's so hard. And so one of the things that people need to really understand is that successful partnerships take time, and they can be difficult. And so partnering is not something that you just enter into lightly. It's about relationship building and trust. We're going to get to some of that in a minute. And not everything requires a partnership. That's the other thing. And so it takes time to sustain them. And you have to assess the benefits and the risks. And we're going to talk about risks. I think people really understand what the benefits can be, although I am going to cover them. But Marianne, if you could go to slide 14 in terms of really, when you think about developing a partnership, you really have to be careful about thinking about the risks. And so risks associated with making the right decisions about the value of the partnership. Some things aren't worth the joint effort, and people need to be fairly sophisticated in how they understand that. Some groups that you partner with may be risky because they lack the experience in being a good partner, and they may be worth having as a partner, but you end up carrying more than was originally envisioned. And risks that are identified with not having predefined outcomes. I'm going to come back to that, but people want to enter into partnerships like, oh, this organization will be a really great partner for us, without understanding what your outcomes are, and we will come back to that. And Marianne, could you go to the next slide, 15? So some of the risk factors when you're entering into a partnership is entering it into it for the wrong reasons, and one of the critically wrong reasons is because you as an organization want something from the other group, but the other group isn't going to gain anything. If a partnership is not mutually beneficial, it is absolutely for the wrong reasons. Or if you just want to be attached to an organization because their name has some value to you, but what you're partnering with them around doesn't add value to your organization, that's a wrong reason. Risks are that you're unprepared for the give and take of working together. It's not easy. It's often easier to do things alone than to do things in groups. I think most people know that. That there's not enough structural support for the selected organization. Structural support, partnerships take time. Again, that's a recurring theme here, and there has to be leadership support for people who are part of the partnership to be able to attend meetings, to be able to get the work done, to do what they say they're going to do. Another risk is that you have a poorly designed implementation process, and sometimes the lack of having a good facilitator, whether that's internal or external, but a facilitator who is moving the process along. I get calls a lot to come and assist partnerships when they are in the middle somewhere of their partnership relationship, and sometimes the call starts with somebody calling and saying, we've been meeting as a partnership group for the last 6 or 8 months, and all we're doing is going around in circles. And I'm always surprised that they've even lasted that long. So somebody internal or external who knows how to move a group along and get them to consensus is critically important, or it becomes a risky proposition. Marianne, if you can go back to slide 5, that'd be great.
Sure.
No, but one right before that. So partnership defined. There's 3 things here. It says partnership, strategic alliance, or collaboration, and they are actually, you could put them together in a Venn diagram. But it is important to understand what kind of grouping or connection you're trying to make. And so I'm going to start in the middle with the strategic alliance. And a strategic alliance is a type of partnership, but it is a type of partnership that is about the long term. We are developing a strategic alliance with this organization because we see a mutually beneficial, broad set of things we could do together, and we may come together around a series of projects and not just one project, or we come together to support our organizational missions in a much broader way. So a strategic alliance is really an organization that you've targeted that you really want to have an ongoing relationship with, and you work together in partnership around a multitude of things. The first one that just says the partnership is you might come together with an organization or people that are a partnership for the time, for a very specified time. It's not a strategic alliance. You're not building an association forever or an ongoing basis or for the long term, but you have a particular project that you need to make happen. You have a new program you want to implement, or you want to go after a particular set of funds that may be time limited. You identify an organization that you want to work with. You are in partnership with that organization for the length and duration of the project, and then you are done, so to speak. And collaboration is really the first 2, partnership and strategic alliance, are very formal, and I'm going to talk about having formal relationships and needing formal agreements. A collaboration may just be, Are people there?
Yes, I think we lost you for a second is what it sounded like.
My apologies, but I'm back.
Yeah, you sound good.
Okay, so collaboration is, I was saying, is really an informal way of being a partnership and being able to partner without a formal agreement. You're collaborating on a few things. You're not doing a formal partnership around a full project, and you're not necessarily trying to form a relationship on the long term to support each organization's mission. So that's some of the distinction between those. Marianne, if you could move to the next slide, the 4 keys. That's great. So I'm going to review now a little bit about the 4 keys to having a good partnership relationship. And so, Marianne, to the next slide, for the partnership to work, there must be leadership, trust, learning, and performance. And one of the things I really want to focus on this slide for just a moment is the trust factor. Most partnerships fail. I mean, there's lots of reasons why partnerships fail, but one of the main reasons is because people do not have a trusting relationship. They're not trustworthy. People don't do what they say they're going to do. Organizations don't do what they say they're going to do, and it becomes very difficult for people to partner. Leadership is incredibly important. I'm sure many of you, I know this is an administrators forum, so you are the leaders. But in many organizations, partnerships form at mid-level in the organization, or the mid-managers are trying to make the partnership work, carry out the project, do what the project's supposed to do, and they don't have the support of the top-level leadership in the organization. And that is, it's very difficult for people who are within the organization to try to create a partnership and spend the time that they need doing the work of the partnership, both in terms of process, maintaining the partnership, and doing the work of the project of the partnership, if leadership is not in full support. So as the administrators here, one of the real jobs in terms of creating partnerships is to create a culture inside your organization that says, we like to partner, we collaborate deliberately in our organization. We believe that you can do it better when you're doing it collectively than separately. Here are the benefits that we see to partnering, and we believe that it's everybody's job when there's a specific partnership. We believe it is everybody's job to make that partnership work. Without that kind of culture, it becomes very difficult to have a partnership in general, and then of course there needs to be leadership on the partnership itself. Learning, a partnership should learn, particularly if it's a strategic alliance, if you're going to have an ongoing kind of relationship, then the partnership needs to learn from its mistakes. It needs to take time to reflect on those mistakes, etc. And then performance, we're going to talk a lot about, you don't just partner to partner. It's not just a process issue. It is absolutely about having metrics that identify how and if the partnership has been successful. Are there any questions so far, Marianne? I had to change phones, so I lost the
nobody has, I haven't seen any hands up or
any typed in questions?
Typed in questions, so I guess.
All right, just keep reminding me if there are, and folks feel free to ask. If you go to the next slide.
Sorry, Lori, on that note, Vita Hill does have a question.
Oh, great.
Why don't you
Thank you, Vita. Is there one?
Remember
Hello.
Yes, hi.
Oh, hi. I just had a question. Could you recap the learning component of the partnership?
Sure, and I have some slides on that which I'll also reference as we go, but learning is about the reflection. So, as an educator, you should get this, that the partnership doesn't just go, full speed ahead without ever reflecting on, do we need to make a mid-course correction here, or if there was a kind of a little storming process through the partnership and we worked our way through it, stopping to reflect on what was the process issue that got us, a little angry at each other, and how can we avoid that in the future, or learning from the performance outcomes, especially if it's a strategic alliance. Here was the partnership we put together. Here was the project we were going to work on. Here were the goals we said we were going to achieve. Here's what we said the outcome measures were going to be. We've completed the project. Did we meet our goals? And how can we ensure that we continue to hit our benchmarks and our metrics when we do our next effort or initiative together? Perfect. Thank you. Are there other questions or comments? Okay. Well, I'll just keep going. And again, Marianne, just interrupt me as you see something if it comes up on the screen. Slide 8 then is just a little graphic of what we've just talked about: leadership, trust, learning, and performance, and making sure that we reflect on the outcomes that we're trying to build. And again, I want to just emphasize the trust factor, because I have been in way too many partnership issues where trust really is the underlying issue. So the fact it says where partners are mutually accountable, share risks and rewards fairly, and support each other. And it really, if a partner organization can't believe that you will do what you say if you're not sharing the risks and the rewards, taking credit jointly, it's the fastest thing to blow a partnership up, so to speak. Okay, Marianne, slide 9, partnership success factors. For the folks on the phone, you'll see that you'll note that there will be 3 slides on partnership success factors, and there's 21 of them. I am only going to point out some that I think need more edification than others. So, for instance, on slide 9, point 4 for success factors says negotiate a formal agreement. I alluded to this when I talked about the difference between a collaboration and a partnership and a strategic alliance, and said that partnerships and strategic alliances really need a formal agreement. And Marianne, if you can, this is one of the second times we'll jump, is if you can go to slide 16, developing partnership agreements. So I want to talk a little bit about why it's important. I think many times we have partnerships. I know I work in a lot of organizations as a consultant. I go in and I talk about, how many partners do you have? And they'll say, oh, we have like 30 partners. And then I'll say, well, where are the formal agreements with those partners? And the organizational leader will look at me and say, oh, we don't have formal agreements with any of them. It's important to lay out what is expected from each of the partners in a partnership, whether it's 2 organizations or 4 or 8. What is it we are trying to accomplish? What are our mutual goals? What have we each committed to, and what are the expectations for behavior, including the fact, some things like if the partnership is going to meet on a monthly basis, let's just say, as example, that even in the agreement it says commit to meeting monthly with the partnership. If the partnership is going to be an ongoing strategic alliance that might include task forces, an agreement might say that there's a commitment of the organization to ensure that the organization is represented on at least one of the 4, I'm making it up, task forces that we might have. But it's really critical to document not every little thing, but the things that we can expect from each other, what it is we're working toward, how we expect to measure what we're working toward, and how each organization is going to be held accountable. Otherwise, you can have partner meetings 6 months in where somebody says, so now we're going to do this, and somebody else says, that's not what I signed up for. Euphemistically, that's not what I signed up for. So very important, at least in our minds, that you have a formal agreement, not a legal document. The next thing I wanted to point out was number 7, still on that slide. I've said something about trust many times now, and maintaining an environment of trust. And for me, the way that works itself out in a partnership is that each organization and the people who are participating in the partnership representing the organizations have to be trustworthy. And trustworthiness really comes from doing what you say you're going to do, and doing it well, and doing it right, and doing it on time, and then not talking about each other behind each other's backs. And the other thing that makes you trustworthy, we say this when we do the kind of partnership building, is to give everybody the benefit of the doubt. If you're in a partnership with an organization and you're in some other meeting and you hear that somebody says that somebody in your partnership said something negative, either about you, about your organization, or about the work, that you give them the benefit of the doubt, and before you jump to conclusions, you go back to your partnership and ask if what you heard was true.
I'm going to interrupt you, Lori. We have a question from Debbie. Debbie, Lori can't see your question. Would you mind unmuting?
And I'm really sorry. When I had to change phones, I had to...
Hi, this is Debbie.
Hi, Debbie. Where are you from?
I'm from Merced.
Merced, Debbie. I worked in Merced for 8 years for the Workforce.
I know, you did.
Do you remember me? So, Debbie, go ahead and ask I can't see the question. I apologize.
Partnerships and trust. How much does
How much do participants from one organization need to know about the governance structure of the other organizations? That'll work.
Quiz.
Am I hearing something in the background? Am I hearing somebody whisper something, or is it in my head? Oh, okay. So anyway, Debbie, so here's what I heard you ask. It got cut off. How much do you need to know about the governance structure of the partnering organizations to really be able to establish trust? Is that your question? So I don't think you have to know a lot about each organization on the trust side. I do think this is a very relevant question for how do we know whether this is an organization we want to partner with at the start. So there's a bigger issue that your question addresses first, which is we want to do X. We need either a strategic partner or a partner to help us make X happen, or we just want a mutually beneficial relationship with this strategic partner. I think some of the research about knowing whether they're the right group to partner with is knowing about their governance structure. Like, does only the leader make decisions? Does everybody else can't make decisions? Does the governance structure, is it slow to act? Is it fast to act? Does everything have to go through a board? There's that bigger set of issues. When it comes to, though, we've decided this is an organization we want to partner with, and now we're talking about environments that establish trust, I think what you have to be clear about is that at the end of the day, partnerships are working through people, right? So you have people who are meeting. They're meeting in groups, they're meeting on task forces, they're meeting in work groups, whatever that is to get work done. And at some level, you've got to be sharing resources, and you've got to be able to make joint decisions about what each organization will bring to the table. And what you need to know at the start is whether or not mid-manager X, who's going to sit on the partnership coalition working group, well, I'm just making that up, whether they can make a decision for the organization, or whether, to the point of governance, they will always have to go back to the leader to ask if it's okay, or if they have to ask someone else if it's okay, because the partner group can't sit around thinking we've gotten a decision from that organization when in fact the organization's representative can't make a decision without having to go talk to someone else. And so those things need to be clear at the start.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes. Thank you.
Were there any other questions? Okay, so I was on trust, so Marianne, if you can go to the next slide, which starts with number 8. And it says leave your ego in control at the door. I think that's pretty self-evident, but I just wanted to point it out that to make a partnership successful, you and your organization have to leave your ego at the door, i.e. you can't want to take credit for everything that goes right and want to blame everybody else for everything that goes wrong.
I'm sorry, slide number?
I'm sorry, it's the next slide. So we were on slide 9, it's slide 10.
Thank you.
Sorry. And it's number 8, leave your ego in control at the door. Are you there?
Yes.
Okay. And control at the door, your organization has to be, little c, has to have the culture to be collaborative in nature, meaning that you may have a vision for how all of this is supposed to work, but once you put a partnership together, you're not going to be the boss of everybody, and people have to be willing, even if you're the convener of the partnership, your organization, the facilitator, the bringing everybody together, once everybody's together and there's a formal relationship among people about what to expect, you're not controlling the environment and the outcome any longer as an independent entity. And that's an important thing to remember. And some organizations can't give that up, and so some organizations need to understand they're not to be a good partner. Number 9. It says understand each partner's mission and organizational culture. A little bit, Debbie, to the question you raised about governance, but this is broader. Again, success factors. You have to understand what each partner's mission and organizational culture is so that you can be value added to them and not just be taking. This has to be a mutually agreeable and a mutually beneficial relationship. And so if you go to slide 13, Marianne.
Okay.
So 9 is the success factor. That was 9, understand each partner's mission and organizational culture, is really related to being able to be value added, and every partner can say they've gained some value. And so this is just, these are 5 bullets about how you might shape the benefits and the value that you add to being a partnership as opposed to just going it on your own. So the fact that one could say, we are creating this strategic alliance or this strategic partnership because we can have a greater impact. That's one reason, that's one value, and if everybody agrees, yes, the impact will be greater, broader, deeper. We can find new and better ways as a second kind of value add, that we know our way to do it, but if we collaborate, we all may find new, innovative, kind of creative ways to do something. 3, the initiative, the partnership, the project, the thing might be risky for one organization to take on, something we've never done before, but if we partner with other organizations, we can spread the risk or spread the financial risk. Which leads to the next bullet, which is reduce or share the costs of either the initiative or the work involved. And we may have the ability to gain more resources together. We may be a stronger entity to go after funding if we are a partnership than if we do it alone. So in terms of that success factor, which is understand each partner's mission and organizational culture, part of that is understanding how we'll be mutually beneficial to each other, and those are some of the ways that you can frame how you can be mutually beneficial, as well as thinking through in your own organization, why do we want a partner? I mean, partnership is a great buzzword, and everybody's got it on their tongues, you know, we all need to partner. But if it's not going to help you make a greater impact, if it's not going to help you find new and better ways, if it's not going to help you spread the risk, if it's not going to help you reduce or share costs, and it's not going to help you potentially be positioned for more resources, there may not be a reason really to partner in terms of your own organization's benefits and the other organizations you might try to draw in. So, Marianne, you can go back to slide 10 now.
Sure. I have a question, Lori.
Yes, who is that?
This is Debbie again.
Oh, Debbie.
Sorry, I'm talking to you.
No, I'm thrilled. Listen, I like the interaction. It's much better for me.
What is your recommendation when, because, let's say, of a grant application, you are forced to partner with other organizations?
Yeah, well, my recommendation is, I'm flippantly going to say don't do it, you know. Do it kicking and screaming. I know that many grant applications ask you to partner with a variety of organizations, and this is where the strategic alliance thing comes in. I mean, in all seriousness, I think that you know, in some ways we know, you know, as adult educators what your mission is, and you also understand how it's changing now in relationship to new metrics and being more focused on workforce issues and getting people to employment and all of that. And so my first suggestion is to take the long view and to start understanding that now, today, we should be building strategic alliances with organizations that are going to be beneficial for our customers based on some of the new things we're being required to do and or the old things, and we are likely to be forced to partner with them in the future. So let's build relationships now so that we're not feeling like we're just coming to them when the money's on the table. I mean, it really is the worst way to it's not the worst way, but it is not a great way to begin a partnership. So I'd say, two things. One is, this is not brain surgery. You could identify pretty much right now inside your organization, you could have a 1-hour meeting and probably identify organizations we should start building relationships with because they're going to position us better for funding and resources and reach out to them now. So that's one thing. On the short term, though, the opportunity comes along, didn't think about it, and says you have to partner with this group. I think that you have to really decide. It's one of the decision factors about whether or not we really want the money or not. Like it's this would be a organization we would want to relate to, not just for this money, and that leader to leader you go and have a conversation that says we want to go after this money together as a way to start building our ongoing strategic alliance, and we want to commit to each other that we may want to be partners beyond the course of the funding.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
So on slide, skipping over some, on slide 11, Marianne, the next one, it says 17, honor your commitments. Again, I've said it, but I want to say it again. Being a trustworthy partner, honoring your commitments. If you say you're going to do something, you need to make it happen. And you can't come back to a partner meeting and say, I know I said that we, Organization X, would do something, and now I have to come back and say we can't do it because 30 days may have passed and other people may have positioned themselves based on that decision. If you can't make a decision on behalf of your organization, you need to say, I can't make this decision, I need to check with someone. 19, it says, respect the right to disagree and act on a consensus basis. I think it's pretty important to understand that partnerships are really, whether they're strategic alliances, partnerships, or informal collaboratives, they are a collaborative form of doing business. And you need to work on a consensus basis as opposed to a voting basis. Voting sets up winners and losers, and if you don't have to go back, Marianne, but there is a slide that we went over that had on it that partnerships, to be mutually beneficial, have to be a win-win situation for all the organizations involved. And voting always sets up winners and losers. Consensus means that we have found a set of decisions that everyone can live with and support. So it is important not to vote, but to create a consensus environment. And number 20 says network and build relationships. We're still on the slides that are about partnership success factors. Network and build relationships. This goes again to something Debbie asked. Partnerships are difficult because you don't just have a relationship, but you have to sustain the relationship. And so you really have to work on building those relationships and sustaining those relationships, and not just coming to organizations when you need something from them. Any questions? Any questions so far? Or other questions? Marianne, are there questions?
I don't see any. Does anybody have a question? All right, let's go on.
Okay. Well, the next slide, which says self-assessment, slide 12, I'm not going to go through this except to say to you all, when you get the material, there is a whole series of questions here where you can do a self-assessment about how and whether you think your agency would be a good partner and whether you need to partner. The next several slides, 13, 14, 15, and 16, we've already addressed. So if you would go to slide 17, says leadership.
Okay.
It says think about where your current partnerships sit on the range below. And if you look at slide 19, Marianne, there's a range. Do you have it up?
Yeah.
That we have current partnerships, and we have a range. What? Sorry? Somebody say it? Oh, okay. There's a range that goes from coexistence to co-ownership. And so you can see some of the ways that we've defined how people may think they're in a partnership, but they're really not. So coexistence is kind of stay on your turf and I'll stay on mine. This goes to the kind of, again, question Debbie asked about, we had to partner with this organization. We all signed agreements because we needed the money, but now that we have the money, we divvied it up, and organization A got their part of the money and they're doing their thing, and we got our part of the money and we're doing our thing, and we really rarely ever talk to each other except when we have to write a report to the funder. That's not really a partnership. Cooperation, I'll lend you a hand when my work is done. I'll help you out, but we're not really in this together. Coordination, people think that when they're coordinating, they're in a partnership. I don't think so. We need to adjust what we're doing to avoid overlap and confusion. You may be trying to align some things, but you're not really working on joint systems and joint processes together. Collaboration and co-ownership really get you to a level of, on this range of where you're really partnering together. And so some of these slides are just about having the opportunity for you to think about how to think about your current partnerships and how you may want to improve those, and how you may want to move forward on new partners. Then slide 20, you can just put it up because it just says some of the definitions that I've already identified. And then the next slide 21. Slide 21. Again, here's the trust thing. What makes a good partner? Building trust, and you can see some of the things we've already talked about. I just want you to know that it's there. So let's go to slide 23, and then I'm going to get ready in a minute to move to the second handout in just a second, Marianne. So slide 23, finding the right partner.
Yes.
I alluded to this when Debbie was talking, but for an organization, if you have the option, and even if you don't, even if somebody's saying to get this money you need to partner with this organization or show you have a partnership, you still need to assess these items so that even if you have to partner with an organization, you know what some of the problems might be. So assessing the reputation of a potential partner. I get asked, for instance, Strumpf Associates, my firm, to be a partner with lots of people, and part of why they want to be a partner with me is because they're trying to break into the workforce arena, for instance, and they know I have a good reputation in the workforce arena, but I don't partner with them because they don't have a good reputation in the workforce arena, and frankly, their reputation is more likely to harm me than mine is to make them better. And it's the same thing with any organization. The negative, unfortunately, always supersedes the positive. Enthusiasm quotient. Can you assess for really how enthusiastic they are? Do they really want to do this project, be in this initiative, work with your group? Or do they seem like they're just doing it because they need to make a list of partners, they want it on their letterhead, those kinds of things? Passion around the vision and the needs. That's part of enthusiasm, but also just passion for the work. Do they have passion for the customer group? Ability to complement. Are they bringing something to the table that you don't have? Filling a gap, filling a need, filling a skill or talent issue that you don't have? Do they have access to talent? And their past experience with partnering. Again, partnering itself is a set of competencies. It's a set of cultural competencies. It's a set of core competencies that organizations either have or have to grow. And if you are a sophisticated organization in partnering and an organization you're thinking of is not sophisticated, you may end up having to coach them and teach them, it's not a bad thing, about how to be a good partner. Questions? Because there's just one more thing on this that I want to talk about, and then I want to move to the second. Are there questions?
I don't see any questions. Does anybody want to take this opportunity before we go forward to...
I have one more slide in here before we move to the second handout. All right, well, let me just, if you go to slide 28, Marianne. So you've got the picture up, the partnership life cycle. if everybody can look at this, it's important to understand what may occur so you don't try to get out too early or stay in too long, both things. So you'll see that this diagram has two axes. Productivity and time are the two axes, and it's about being at your most productive is a function of time in a partnership, in a collaborative, and many leaders don't understand that, and they want it all to happen tomorrow. Or I was just facilitating a group the other day who said, every funder wants us to be able to get people their GEDs in 5 minutes. It's not going to happen in 5 minutes. Getting the highest level of productivity is a function of relationship building. So partnerships go through stages, stage 1, 2, 3, and 4. I'm sure most of you have been through some kind of team building training, and you've heard forming, norming, storming, and performing. These are similar to that the partnership has to go through a forming stage, and early on it may feel fairly productive when everybody's kind of just new and it's exciting and they're being really nice to each other. Then in stage 2, when you're really going through the storming kind of and norming process, productivity may go down. People may feel frustrated because you're really trying to get at some of the real issues and some of the hard issues about how do we align systems, how do we align processes. And in stage 2, it can feel like the partnership is not working, but instead of trying to get out, people need to understand we're just in phase 2 and we need to find strategies to get to stage 3, where we can be functioning. And then stage 4 is really where you fly, and you can, again, either fail at any time, you can fail, or you can really fly and be at your most productive to meeting your goals.
Lori, this is Marianne. I have a question about this. Could you give recommended timelines? Is there, if you said, sort of spinning your wheels in process, would there be suggestions you have for the group if there's the formation, seeking to form new partnerships? Here's a rough timeline of how long you should be in each stage.
Well, it's really hard to do that because it depends on the nature of the work, the thing you're partnering around. If you're partnering around a project with a group of people or organizations that you've already been partners with, people do make the mistake to think they're going to be in stage 3 right away, functioning, because we all know each other. So every new initiative or new project needs a forming stage, but if we all do kind of know each other, the organizations are strategic partners with each other, we've all worked together, the forming stage should be, not take very long. I think in terms of meetings. So it's 1, 2, or 3 meetings, it's 30 days. Something like that. You'll still have a frustration phase, but frustration, because you've worked together before, you should know how to get in and out of it pretty quickly, and you should be functioning within the first quarter, it would seem to me, or even less, of a project. But again, the nature of the project, if we are really trying to reinvent the way we do our design, our program model, for instance, I'm making all of this up, and we have been an adult basic ed organization that really has been focused on getting people their GEDs, and we're supportive, and we get people in, and our people stay, and they all make 80% get their GED, and now we have to reinvent ourselves to be not just about the GED anymore, but getting people into post-secondary or getting them a job. We want to partner with the workforce board. We've never known them before much. We may have been a contractor or something. Those things, it's harder to say. I could say if you told me what the project was, I can do it that way, but I can't do it just in general. But I will say that partnerships need a strategy to get through these things fairly quickly, so you are not just spinning your wheels. So I would say that even the most complicated project should find itself in the functioning stage within the first 3 or 4 months, if that's helpful.
Thank you. And I don't want to take airtime from folks who are on the phone, so if you have a question, please raise your hand or type in, or even feel free just to chime in on the phone. I guess my question is, in stage 2, how do you know when this is, we're getting out, like the failure means the partners get out and the partnership ceases? How do you know when you're
Well, can I say this without offending anybody? It's a little like a marriage or a partnership.
Yes.
I mean, how do you know when to get out? So the first thing is you don't run at the first sign of trouble. That's the first thing, if you're really committed and passionate, enthusiastic, and all that. So you don't run at the first sign of trouble. You try multiple strategies. So you first try honesty and confronting whatever the issue is. Why are we just going around in circles? How come when we reach consensus? I'm giving examples of things that end up being the problems. The next meeting, somebody comes and says, oh, I didn't really agree with that, and then we have to start all over again. We've established norms. We're not following them. People aren't coming to meetings, etc. What are the strategies to get over those? Then so the first is don't run at the first sign of trouble. The second is confront what you think the issues are. If that still doesn't solve the problem, the third is, depending on how important the partnership is to people, you need to bring in a mediator. I said that's the role I play often. People bring me in not to facilitate their partnership. I do that too for years, but just to be the fixer. So this is like going to marriage counseling. Is this important enough that we want to give one more stab at it? We're going to bring in an outside facilitator, not a mediator, big M, but somebody from the outside to see if they can help us work through the issue. And if you've tried all those three strategies and nothing's working, it is time to get out.
Thank you.
All right, let's move quickly because we don't have that much time left. I have a second set of handouts, and I really have provided them just to be able to give you some data. Do you have those up on the screen, Marianne?
Yeah, they're coming up now.
Does the context for building strategic community partnerships?
Yes.
One of the things that I've talked about, that partnerships need formal agreements, and you need to understand what you are coming around for. What is the context of the partnership? What do you want the outcomes and goals to be? And so if you can go beyond the cover page to slide 2, this is the kind of specificity handout, the one that really is more focused on how adult education and workforce around what things might you partner around beyond just the general partnership stuff. So there's a slide here that says context and purpose of partnership building. I've given you two kind of broad purposes that you might be building strategic alliances around. Now, I'm making a big distinction. We don't have a project yet necessarily, or we have a kind of big mission thing, and we really want to build strategic alliances. So internal to our organization, we've decided that we can't do this alone. We cannot address all the needs alone. The illiteracy issues are too big. The hardest to serve who are reading below an 8th grade level are too big. I'm just giving as example. The fact that the workforce system needs to get people to jobs, and so do we, but you can't get people who can't read to jobs. We just can't do this alone. And we want to develop partnership strategies to align systems and processes in ways that make sense to the customer. The other big reason to really try to build a community partnership in advance of anybody telling you that you have to is that right now we are incredibly difficult. We as a system are incredibly difficult for anybody to do business with as a customer, to try to navigate the community college on your own, even find adult basic education, get to the workforce system. I mean, most people don't even know what a one-stop is. If you go to the next slide, the next several slides are just some data. I've done several presentations recently at multiple conferences around adult education and workforce building partnerships. And again, I'm a data-driven person, and so I think partnerships need to be based, or the more strategic alliances need to be based on data. So I just wanted to share with you some of the data. There's going to be more recent data with the new census. But if you look at slide 3, 76.6 million students enrolled in schools from kindergarten through graduate schools. Of those, 72% in this country, aged 12 to 17, were judged academically on track. Only 72%. That's that much, 38% that are not. If you go, and again, what's our reason for partnering? What are our statistics in our local community, and how do we support people staying on track and finding alternatives so they can graduate from high school? Slide 4.
Yes.
This is about, and you all know these statistics, I just wanted to put them here. This is about how much more money somebody makes when they have variously different degrees, and the fact that we want to help people do that. And if you go to slide 5, it tells you how much money over a lifetime in 2005 by educational attainment. And so those with a high school diploma make $26,000 or almost $27,000. Associate's degree, $36,000. Again, just some information around what could drive a strategic alliance and what is it we are looking to make happen for the customers that we have in our organizations. Finally, I guess, because I know we're getting to the time, I did want to just look at the last slide, Marianne, slide 9, integration in practice.
Okay.
One of the things that the adult basic education new kind of formulation is looking at, the issue about adult ed and community colleges and potentially under this administration the money going to community colleges, and then the notion of what the workforce system is supposed to be doing is all based on integration. And so there are 4 program approaches that have been tested with some research behind them, and they are listed here, about what works in terms of helping people get their basic education skills and get employment and get a second degree, or after high school, the degree plus, so to speak. And so there's something called employer-based training, sectorial work development initiatives, targeted programs to limited English proficiency where people are simultaneously working, and career pathway programs. Again, these are research-based kind of approaches. I wouldn't call them models, but they can't be done just as adult basic education. They have to be done in partnership with either a community college or the Workforce Development Board, or all 3. And so these just describe what some of those approaches are. You can find research on them. So I'm looking at the clock. I think it's just right at 3:30, is it not?
Does anybody have any last questions for Lori before we sign off for the day? You can raise your hand, type in, or please feel free just to speak out right now. And Vita, your hand raised. Why don't you go ahead?
Will the presentation be available, the PowerPoint presentation or the handouts?
Lori,
Absolutely. I thought you were going to post them with the audio. That's why I gave you more than I could cover in the webinar, because I want everybody to have the material.
And I will forward them right after we are close up today.
Great, thank you.
Does anybody else have questions? Okay, Vita, that's you with your hand up. LaRonda, you are welcome. Okay, if there aren't any more questions, Lori, I just want to, again, on behalf of CalPro and the group, if I may, and I'm sorry, and I'm also reading Paul's email. Yes, Paul, we will email you the
yeah, because I can't see, so if people are making just comments, because I want to say thank you all very much. I know it's hard to stay on the phone for an hour, and I hope this information was helpful.
It's fantastic. And again, so on behalf of the group and CalPro, I want to thank you, Lori. It's a busy time of year. I know you're in the midst of traveling, but this is partnership building and collaboration is definitely something that we hear a lot about for the future of California adult education. And so this type of professional development and technical assistance is really invaluable. We thank you for bringing your expertise to this group today.
Thank you.
Thanks,
everybody.
And you're getting a lot of thank yous from the group that you can't see. So,
okay, well, I'm actually, just because I'm not at my computer, so Catherine, don't close me out for a minute so I can just go back to my computer when I hang up and can just see the thank yous.
Sure thing.
That.
Okay. That's fine.
Let me just be honest. All right, so thank you all very much. I'm going to sign off now.
yes.
All righty.
All right, thanks, everybody. Bye now.
Thank you.